Oh, hey everybody. Back working on the 81 Cadillac. This is the one with the 864 multi-displacement 6 liter. And this engine's been having trouble running. It's had trouble with idle speed. And to kind of recap some previous episodes, I've changed the ECM. It has a brand new ECM, rebuilt ECM in it that so far I've not put power on, I've not fired up, because I decided that there are two pieces in this. One is there's an idle speed motor on the fuel injection throttle body, and it's controlled by an ECM circuit. My diagnosis, if you go back and look at my previous videos, the diagnosis was that the ECM circuit looked like it was burned out. The driver was bad. So I got to rebuild ECM, swapped everything over, and it's there. The motor tested good, but I got suspicious. I'll just say, I couldn't find a reason why the ECM driver circuit should die. And some things in the motor itself seemed like they were a little bit erratic. So today, I'm changing the motor. I'm going to replace the idle speed motor, make all the connections, make all the settings. This is a little bit challenging because once you change the motor, you have to adjust it. And so there are adjustments to the throttle position. Let me rephrase that. There are checks to make sure the throttle position sensor is correct, that its setting is correct, that the idle speed setting is correct, and then you have to adjust the motor itself so that you get a higher, that when it's extended, it's at the right place. So it's like you want, this engine's supposed to be like 375 RPM hot idle min without the idle speed motor doing anything for you. That when it's retracted, you ought to be low. And then the motor has the ability to kick the idle speed up, and the extended portion is supposed to be 1500 RPM plus or minus 100. So it's going to be a little bit challenging to set that. I have a new motor. Comes with a new bracket. It's a standard motor parts. It's a standard motor parts SA4 actuator. It's used on a lot of General Motors products. It's not unique to this one. And I was actually able to buy it. They didn't have it in stock, but I was able to get it literally overnight. So that's pretty good. Reading all of the instructions. First of all, the instructions in my official Cadillac service manual aren't completely clear. The bracket itself, both the one that's on the engine and the one that came in the kit, tell you, it says extend shaft before mounting. Now, to extend that shaft, you can't just pull on it, right? As far as I can tell, in order to extend that shaft, I'll have to put power on it. It's a stepper motor, and I'll have to extend it. And there's a method of, and you've seen again, previous episodes, I've got a connector for this motor, a separate connector that I can put power on and make it extend or make it retract. If you put power on one direction, it extends. You put power the other way, it retracts. My intention is that I'm going to extend the old motor. I've got my dial caliper, and I'm going to try to get someplace where I can get a measurement of how far it's out, extended, in its current adjustment. I'm going to extend the new motor because that's what the thing says it should do. And what I'd like to do is set the extension of the motor so it matches the old one as close as possible. I'm still going to need to adjust it, but better off if you're close rather than off by 3/4 of a mile. I might be able to do it with a tape measure, but I got my dial caliper. We're going to go at that. Finally, in order to do this, you need something that's going to measure RPM. And I've got old Actron engine analyzer, basically from the 80s. And it's an Actron Model 615 engine analyzer, and so it has an RPM scale on it. And I'm supposed to be able to hook that to the tachometer connection on the high energy ignition, and it should read RPM for me, which would be a great thing. I was searching for a modern, what I'll call a modern one, but from a tool loaner program or something, couldn't find that. So I brought this one from home, and it's actually something that I got out of an estate sale for a few dollars, and it looks like it should be good, so we're going to give it a try. So anyway, I'm going to go dive in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the old motor off. I can extend it from there since I've got the pigtail. And, there's two, if you open the throttle, there are two Phillips head screws. There's one right there, and there's one down below. And it's going to be a little fun getting into those. So I'm going to get my offset Phillips screwdrivers out and get that dude off of there. So in order to get to these guys, I had to remove the throttle springs so I could get the throttle to stay open and get them out of the way. And so far I've been able to break them loose with the offset Phillips. And I'm going to go at them with a stubby here, with one of these guys here, and back those dudes out. Okay, so I put the new motor on the new bracket. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I got the old one off, and these holes are tapered. The bolts that go in have a taper on them under the head, and these bolt holes are square. Now, maybe if you reef on those screws hard enough, these will deform and shape, because it looks like there's a little bit of metal moved. But I'm more inclined, if this old bracket is good, to switch it over and reuse it so that the fasteners and that all line up the way they were. Now, I said I wanted to extend the motor. Here's my pigtail. It's got all the right colored wires on it. This is an official replacement pigtail for this motor. Because when it's installed on the engine, when you're trying to diagnose it, you can't get into these terminals very easily. So we'll do it this way. We're just going to slide it in there. I'm not going to make it clip at this point. So the top two are C and D, are the wires for the motor. These are the ones for the switch, and you really want to make sure you don't put power on those guys, because you'll burn out the switch, and they caution that in the service manual. So according to the book, if you put the top one, the light green, on, which is D, on power, and C on ground, the motor should extend. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to go straight to the battery. Now, normally, I only like to do this with a fused wire in case something goes bad. But knowing that I'm just touching them, okay, well, that looks like it's all the way out now. And boy, that guy's just about out to the hole, extended out to the hole. And I don't know, this one may actually be already, the new one may already be extended. It looks like it might be close. I guess I'm going to switch the wires over and try it to be sure. All right, it's in there pretty good. I haven't quite latched it. It's just, we're doing this for a few seconds. So once again, back to the green wires. Light green to plus, dark green to ground. Let's see what we get here. Looks like it's there. Just for grins, I'm going to reverse them, which should retract it. Okay. That sounds good. All right. So they shipped it to us extended. That's a good thing. All right. Well, now I'm going to try to, I'm going to measure this one. So I want to be real careful and not push it back at all. And then put my dial caliper on here. Let's see what we get. I go right onto the end of that, off the face of the bracket. I get 1.955 or 54. Close enough. You just double check that. Make sure it didn't shift. Easy enough to do. Yeah, 1.965. So I bumped it a little. I could lock it down, but maybe I should. Just don't have enough hands. Make sure it hits right there. 1.960. Well, that's 3 readings. They're all in about 10 thousandths. That's not bad. All right, now I'm going to go set the other one. All right, so I got the bracket swapped across. I also took the old screw out of the old one. This was the new one, and it didn't have quite as big a head on it. So I liked that better. And then this was very loose in the threads. So I switched to the other one, hoping it would be tighter. And it's a little tighter, but not tight enough. You'll see I got a little dab of electrical tape on there. I want to make sure it doesn't try to go inside the motor and gum stuff up. But I adjusted this, and it was kind of interesting because where the threads change color, where they're dirty from clean, that's where I set it, from the old motor to this motor. And then I measured the height. You know, I held it out to the end, and I measured the height with my gauge, and it's spot on. Now, I still may have a bunch of adjustment to do, but it ought to be close enough to get me started. Now, for the moment, I've got the new motor over here, and I've got it connected, but I didn't install it. And I'm going to bring the throttles back to 0, to the stop. The instructions say never to unplug that motor while it's powered up, because it will damage the ECM. If you go to the Cadillac service manual, it actually tells you to do that, to pull it while it's powered up, to make certain things happen out here. So for safety, I'm going to try not to do that. But one of the first things they want me to do is make sure that the throttle position sensor is correct when the throttle is closed. So I don't have the springs on it at the moment, but I have a digital voltmeter here. This appears to be the breakout for testing. And I right now have the ECM car powered up so that I can measure this. And let's see what we get. I can't set the camera in exactly the right place, but we'll just see what we can do here. So I got my meter set on 2 volts. We'll probe this connector. And what do I get? It's actually 2000 millivolts, so I'm at, it's a little bit low. Let me change scales here. Yeah, it's only given me 0.38. Come on, get in here. Gives me 4.4 max. Gives me 0.34. See, I'm supposed to be at 0.45 when I'm all the way down. So that's off a little bit. Although, man, it's really sensitive. 0.35, holding it tight on the stop. It comes up really, really fast. Darn, that's too low. I mean, it's out of spec by 1/10 of a volt. If you put pressure, depending on how much pressure you put on it. If you take the pressure off, it's sitting about 400. So that could be a problem. That may be something I'm going to have to work on, because that's a little bit low. Now, the challenge to that is that to fix that means to make the adjustment, I think I actually have to remove the throttle body from the car. According to the book, you have to take off the throttle body, and if nobody's ever done it before, you have to drill out a couple holes on the bottom of the throttle body that are marked that lets you break spot welds that are holding that sensor in position. So that's kind of a difficult, that's not something I want to do today. So again, I'm a little bit low. But I think I'm going to try it from there. I'm going to shut the power off. I'm going to install the motor. And see if I can get it to fire up and run and see what I get. If I need to adjust that, pulling the throttle body off is a job for another day. All right, I got the motor reinstalled and connected. Looks pretty good. Torquing those screws, there's no torque spec given. They just say snug or firmly or something to that effect. It's a little bit tricky, so I used my offset one. And I also used this stubby, which happens to be, this one's a Husky. It's got a square shaft on it, and I was able to put a 1/4 inch end wrench on it and hold it in with one hand and crank the end wrench with the other. Got things pretty good and tightened up. Then to do any more work here, I need to have the air cleaner off. So I had to put some electrical tape over the open vacuum connection. I got my engine analyzer hooked up. We'll have to see how well this analyzer works. I've not used it much. I say it was an estate sale piece, but they give you, there's a tack connection in the distributor cap, and they give you a little adapter to slide up in there and get onto the fitting. And you clip it to this guy. The others, picks up 12 volts off the battery. And we'll see if first of all, we'll see if I was successful with getting the ECM installed, and let's see if she'll run, and then we'll come back and see what we get for speeds. I mean, to properly do the idle speed, and even that test on the throttle position sensor, the engine is supposed to be warm, so everything is so the sensors are warmed up, and it's sitting in a garage. It's about 60 degrees, so yeah, we'll kind of see what things look like here in a minute. she's running a little rough, but she hasn't run in like 3 months, so let her get warmed up here. Well, I've got her up and running, and the meter's working, showing me around 800 or 900 RPM, but it's running kind of rough. Sounds like it's got a misfire. I don't have any codes showing from the ECM, so I don't want to run this too long this way because I don't want to smoke the converter if it's misfiring. So let's shut her off and take a check on some things. So the car seems like it has a misfire, and on one hand, it didn't seem like it had that before I changed the ECM, but it was running pretty bad. It didn't want to idle. I was setting codes. The new ECM probably hasn't done its fuel learns yet, but this sounds like it sounds like one cylinder is marginal to out. And in any case, I did go in here. I got the key on at the moment. Hit off and warmer, and so then you get 88, and then 70, which means it's ready to go. If I flip the cruise switch on and off, it goes to 90. And then the first one here, which is the instantaneous average button, you hit that one and you go, what I did is I went through. So there's one, which is, it's sitting at 9% throttle, which it's on the fast idle, with the motor's extended. And 2 is 82, which is the barometric pressure. And 3 is 83, that's the map. So anyway, I was able to, with the engine running, click through and see the temperatures, and it wasn't going into closed loop, which makes sense because it was, I didn't run it till it got hot, but essentially it was misfiring hard enough that I didn't want to burn up the catalyst. I poked my head underneath and it didn't look like it was, it didn't look, I've seen catalysts get red. It wasn't doing that. But I just didn't want to run it too long with what I would say was a pretty obvious misfire. So at this stage, so I can walk on through all of the different settings, and they're all good. And I guess if I hit the button next to it, it'll go backwards. So what I would have liked to have done is adjust the ISC motor that I installed. And the adjustment is somewhat complicated. It says remove the air cleaner, make sure it's warm, hook up a tachometer, which I got. Check the TPS adjustment, which, it looked like mine was off just a little bit. Open up the set timing connector, which I believe is this green one here that is adjacent to the motor, to the wiring harness here, which I would use for setting ignition timing, which still could happen one of these days. So do that, disconnect, open the set timing, disconnect the TPS. Then it says turn the ignition off for 10 seconds and observe the plunger. It should fully extend. And when it's fully extended, disconnect the connector and jumper A and B together. Now, that one probably works okay. Just I would say is don't disconnect the connector until turn the key off with it fully extended. Now I suppose it could retract, but I think it'll stay extended. And then they want you to jumper pins A and B together on the harness side. reconnect the TPS, start the engine. Anyway, the essence of what they're trying to get you to do is to get it fully extended, and when it's fully extended on a hot engine, you ought to be at 1500 RPM plus or minus. And then they want you to go around, reconnect the motor, and go through 5 through 8, which is with it fully extended. That doesn't make sense to me. Just a minute. Reconnect the motor and repeat steps 5 through 8. If the engine speed is too low, adjust the TPS, which is in a different section. That one I don't quite understand, other than if you reconnect it, start the engine up, and it should no longer be fully extended. It should end up backing off to what I'll call normal idle. And then if that's too low, they're suggesting that what you need to do is readjust the TPS to raise that, I'll call it the minimum idle speed, or the normal 375 RPM idle speed. So that's what I intended, but today, and there's where you have to take out spot welds to be able to take out the screws. So I will need to figure out here, probably get a new gasket for the throttle body in the event that I need to do an adjustment on the TPS. And, on my meter, I was only getting about 1,000 RPM idle. The engine was really running rough, and it wasn't wanting to speed up. I could speed it up by throttle. I could step on the throttle and it would sort of clear out and run better. So I think my next step, make a long story short, my next step, this car's, it's a 81, it's 40 years old. I was looking at the wires. These are Packard wires, which is original equipment. They might have been replaced by the dealer or something at one point, but Packard wire hasn't been around for a long time. So anyway, I think I'm going to prepare to do a full ignition update, just general principles. And I'm going to say cap, rotor, wires, spark plugs. And while I'm at it, I think I'm going to replace the ignition module in here because they have a habit of getting weak. And so I'm going to try to make sure we get all the ignition straightforward. And then when I know the ignition is good, then I'll work on that. And if it's still not running well, I may have to go in and, service the injector system. What I will tell you is, though, that before I took the part, before the ECM died completely, this engine was running in closed loop, and the oxygen sensor was responding, and the injectors seemed to be doing what they were supposed to do. So well, I got the motor installed. I'll get some ignition parts so that I can rule that out. We should be on the way to making this whole car run. I mean, it runs barely, but I got some more to do. And some of it, like I say, probably hasn't been serviced in ages. So we'll do that next time. Thanks for watching, and that's all for now.